Makes sense that it's owned by the Windows 3 team, yeah, but say it though, the features they've implemented on that.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I need to go grab John.
Oh, dogs, yeah.
You can lock them both out. Oh, wait, he hasn't left the room yet.
Why would we do that, Mark?
Okay, we'll kick things off as they come in. Okay, so welcome everyone to the last meetup that we'll hold for this year. And the reason why we won't do one next month is because December. And also the day that we were planning on doing it is the day that the AI Roadshow event is happening down in Darling Harbour. So just a quick introduction from me. My name's Mark O'Shea. If you're joining for the first time, the person who just left the room was Steve. And Aresh, if you would just want to do a quick intro.
Hi guys, I most of the people would know me. That's Aresh. I work for Dell Technologies as a senior solutions architect. I often present on topics like AVD, Windows 365 in this forum. So today is going to be a relaxing day for me.
Okay, so yeah, and Jeroen's not able to make it. Yeah, so for Jeroen today, it's one of his kids. I don't know how many kids he's got, so I'll say one of his kids' birthdays today. So yeah, he thought it was better to be at home, with the kid unwrapping presents as opposed to joining us, and I kind of understand that. So just a couple of things here on the agenda for today. I think probably we've got 3 topics. I think 2 of them, the Windows 11 and the Windows 10 pieces, I don't think we need to spend all that much time on those because they're pretty much continuations of earlier conversations that we've had. But we've finally got an official proper public preview of Microsoft Connected Cache. So one where you don't have to go through a special sign-up process and then hope that the thing you're searching for in the Azure portal actually appears for you. So we'll spend a bit of time going through that. And then we'll jump in and just sort of have a quick chat about Win 11 24H2, and then just basically doing a bit of a check-in, I guess, really on both of those in terms of, where you're at, what's your thinking at the moment around, adoption of 24H2, and what kind of edge case situations or stragglers do you have on the Windows 10 side as well? So for anyone who is joining for the first time, if you just want to sort of do a quick introduction, either via chat or if you want to unmute to ask. Now I'm sort of looking around. I think we've got, I'm not seeing any different names to who we've had in here previously, so we can probably skip this. But we probably should, when Dominic arrives, here he is. I was about to throw you under the bus, Dom. I was about to say, when Dom arrives, we have to pretend that we don't know who he is, so he has to introduce himself all over again.
Hello, I'm Dom. I'm from a telecoms company who turned off 3G. And that's all you need to know for now.
Oh, so Optus.
Yeah.
But we all know that's got nothing to do with what you do on a daily basis. So, okay, yeah.
You're safe from our wrath.
Yeah, for now.
Okay, so
just can't ring to tell us this problem.
Yeah.
We do have 2 people, by the way.
Oh, we do in the room? Okay.
Yes. Come on,
so
Mark.
Who do we... Okay, so it's not compulsory, but if you just want to do a quick intro.
I am Elsie, and I've been working in the education industry and recently moved to an investment company. And I used to be a desktop engineer and now still doing similar jobs, I guess. Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. Well, welcome along.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rich. I was at said investment company, but now I'm at one of the banks.
Okay.
Yeah, in tune
so okay. So we get a 2-for-1 deal here.
Something like that,
yeah. Yeah. Well, people who know I assume you know each other.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to make that I didn't want to completely assume that was the case. Now, I have removed an event from the upcoming events side, and I'll be careful what I say here about Canberra, but Canberra. Is that enough? No, it's so yes. Okay, so I know like Jose was going to be holding a Workplace Ninjas event down in Canberra, but yeah, that's not going to happen. That was going to be at the end of the month. So
Yeah,
so is there? So Jose, just curious, is there a plan to target Canberra again in the future?
There is a plan for the Workplace Ninja Tour next year, but after that, that's what was going to dictate if we ever coming back to Canberra or not. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
But like, if we get people in to show up, I have no problems. But like with that, I released the event a month ago, and there was like one RSVP apart from us. So.
And seeing that you know what the dropout rate is like for people who register,
Yeah, we're probably gonna have -2.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you. Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed in the room. Okay, so then that brings us to something that's happening this week or next week, Microsoft Ignite. So obviously registration, etc., has closed for that, but you can attend online now. Probably just the things to watch out for there is, I don't really know how much value there will be if you're somebody who wants to get up stupidly early in the morning to join these sessions. So they're in Central Standard Time, so it's going to be stupidly early in the morning, for you to sort of join live sessions. And anything that I think you're joining live will also be something that's recorded and available anyway. And there'll also be more sessions that are recorded that you won't actually be able to watch online. So maybe they're just in a part of the venue that they just don't, for whatever reason, they're saying, yeah, that's not something that's going to be streaming, etc. But there's a few good sessions on over there, depending on what your interests are. But if you haven't already sort of just signed in, to at least get access to the sessions, see what's in there, see what announcements, etc. are being made. But don't be surprised when you go through the agenda that you'll sort of find a few things that you go, oh, that looks really interesting, and then find that it might just be like a 15-minute theatre session that's not being broadcast, that's not being recorded. And the reality is in a 15-minute window, you've got an intro, basically, a couple of minutes on intro, a couple of minutes on outro. So there's not really a huge amount of scope for them to do too much that, you probably couldn't pick up elsewhere anyway. Now, the other event that's coming up is the Microsoft AI Tour. So there's actually two different things I'll talk about here. One is the public event. Now, was anyone allowed to attend this? Did anyone? You tried?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we've still got a few weeks, so there's still a chance. Now, the other thing that's happening that for those of you who are in the Microsoft partner space, some of you may be getting an invite to something that will be held down at the Hyatt Regency in Sydney on the 10th. So if you are a Microsoft partner and that's something that you have, I don't know if they've promoted it yet or not, but if they haven't, that's something we can we'll bug Steve about to see if we can figure out how to get, any of the partners who haven't been invited along to that one as well.
Stephen doesn't know.
Okay. Yeah, that would involve you talking to people over in the partner team.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know the drill, Mark.
Oh yeah. They're like the what? The what tour? AI. What does that stand for?
The LLM tour.
Oh yes. So this one is, if anyone went to the previous one, like this is a pretty big event. So I'll be doing some lab support stuff down there. So be making friends with my old friend Copilot Studio again, I think, for that one. But otherwise, if you are accepted to that, just let me know, because there'll be I think there'll be a few people there, and so the opportunity for drinks, etc. afterwards is definitely on the agenda. So not really too much happening right now in terms of events outside of those two. I think once we get into early in the new year, we'll start seeing a few more things start to pop up. So let's get on to something that, what was it? Was 2019 or 2018 that was the announcement? Sorry?
18.
2019.
Either way.
Presented about
We'll
that
say
last
it-
week and I went on
Yeah.
those days. So
We'll say
Ignite
it's
2019.
Okay, so basically this has been a preview 5 years in the making. Now there have been like private previews, and a few of us have played around with it before, so we knew what it was capable of. But it's been through quite a few revisions in terms of how the technology is actually being delivered. And I think it's fair to say that they've actually done things right in terms of what they're doing now versus what they're even doing with the last generation, in terms of it now being something that is, it's much more lightweight. It doesn't require a standalone VM unless you want to put it into a VM. If you want to add it to like a Windows 11 machine or whatever that's running, it's a nice, easy process for you to go through that. So I guess the first thing then that we really should talk about is, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, let's just go over to the announcement, and I'll bring up the correct web page. So I'll just drop this over into the chat for everyone. So this is Microsoft Connected Cache, or what we will refuse to ever stop calling DOINC, the delivery optimization in network cache. And this is really a delivery optimization caching solution. So I guess it's one of those things where a lot of people know about delivery optimization, and they mostly think of it as that peer-to-peer thing that they didn't know how to control when Windows 10 shipped. And it's like, why?
Networking.
Sorry?
And they had to argue with their networking team over.
Yes, to either allow it or to stop it from hammering everything else on their network, or on their Wi-Fi specifically, was more of the issue that we were seeing. So this is something that there has been a solution available to people who have been who've got Config Manager deployed, but it hasn't been something where they've had a standalone version. So for a while this was kind of like called, we could sort of call it MCC standalone. So it doesn't require Config Manager, and basically it's you'll see here when we go through some of the different deployment options, even though you can deploy it on Windows clients or Windows Server, it's basically under the covers, it's a Linux solution that we're running either natively on Linux or on Windows Server and Windows clients. We're running it under WSL. So a pretty good scenario there where it's like one solution that's running across both, as opposed to them trying to sort of have something native running on both, where there's not really a need to. Now, I've already started seeing some feedback, people going, why isn't there a native Windows version? And it's like, well,
there is.
WSL is part of Windows. This runs on top of WSL, therefore it's native. That's my argument. So some good news is it's pretty easy to get it up and running. There's a couple of little things that are missing in the documentation, but things that if you sort of worked with PowerShell, etc., it's not going to take you too long to figure out what the pieces are that's missing. But if we just sort of go through some of the scenarios here for it, it's basically saying let's sort of have a way to start centralizing updates, especially when we've got limited internet bandwidth, or maybe branch office scenarios where whether they've got direct internet connections or whether they're sort of being routed back through to their central location. Just sort of having something that's running locally that's acting as a cache for certain types of updates. And we'll talk about what some of those things are here. Now, what they're sort of talking about here is for that branch office scenario is I guess, even though they're not explicitly saying it here, what they're trying to say here is you don't need to deploy a server VM in order to get the functionality out of this. Now, the things that you do need to think of, though, is if this is installed on a Windows 11 machine, it kind of needs to be a machine that stays in the branch office, or in some cases, maybe someone might actually still go through and deploy it as a VM. Like putting it on someone's laptop isn't really going to do much use for other people when they're out of the environment. So it's something where it's not necessarily going to work immediately for everyone based on, at the end of the day, if people are coming and going, there are no machines that are staying in there. They'll need to sort of look at, how do we maybe repurpose something just to sort of sit there and run as a Windows client or server with connected cache, or alternatively, I guess if they don't have, if they don't want to worry about the Windows licensing and they're happy to go down the Linux path, that's also an option that's for them. So really there, it starts sort of scaling up there in terms of the overall deployments. You can start seeing that they're talking about, running it on server 2022. Now, I think when you look at the documentation, it does say server 2022 or later. So even though I'll show you a deployment that I've got here, it's on 2022. What I'll do is I'll go through at some point later and just redeploy it on 2025, just so that I don't have to think about it, even though I don't think I've really got to worry about 2022 end of support for a VM for this kind of thing. But otherwise, the Linux distros, etc., are in there. Now, if we just sort of talk about what's required over on the Azure side, we just go through and we create a connected cache instance. So in this case, you can see, it's connected cache for enterprise and education. And I've just got one instance deployed in here. Let's get rid of the essentials. So here you can see the traffic in here. So you can sort of basically see here that I basically got this up and running at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I've just been hammering it with some tests, with a few test scenarios, just to see how things go in there. And it was a pretty fast process. Probably the most time-consuming part is actually just the setup of MCC. So when so what do I mean by setup? If we jump over to the cache nodes to see if I wanted to, so rather than deploying a new one, I'll just choose the one that I've got deployed already. And in here, we just sort of say, okay, we get a choice when we're doing the initial deployment. Is it Windows or Linux? And that will have an impact on the provisioning side. How big do we want to make the cache drive? Now here, I've just gone down the path of 300 because I just wanted it to be excessively big to try to get a stupidly high hit ratio if I'm sort of running random stuff through it. Now, one of the things that's not in here, but that the team has spoken about publicly in the past is, so I'm just putting a disclaimer in there so that Steve doesn't get uncomfortable with what I'm about to say, is they were talking previously about, support for upstream cache instances. So if they had basically one in the main office and then multiple ones out in the branch office locations, that the branch office locations, if they didn't have their own internet connections, just pointing them through to the head office instance. Now,
so you're talking the cruise ship scenario there, Mark.
There are multiple, I guess there are multiple ones here, but even in terms of, just the organizations that sort of want to cascade deployments internally for whatever reason. But that's not something that's mentioned anywhere at the moment in terms of the documentation. I don't know if it's something that is still something that's still on the design guide. But it's one of those things where, look, I'm just happy that it's in public preview, without there being any strings attached in terms of being able to get access to it. Now, just over here on the provisioning side, I'll talk you through this once we get into the lab VM, but we can either point it to an AD account or to a local machine account. Now, just with this VM, because I just wanted to get it set up really quickly, I did exactly what you think I did. I used the local admin account for it, which is...
You didn't.
Of course you did.
Well, this VM is going to get destroyed. It doesn't matter. This is Doink V1. Doink V2
what you
will
got to
be...
remember, Jose, is we can literally go and type all that in, and then we'll add an additional node into Mark's.
Yes.
Doink.
Yeah.
But no, we're gonna replace the one because the key is unique every time you run, so.
Yeah, so yeah, that's okay. You can use that one because I'm going to kill this one anyway. But there's some useful details in there, and you can kind of take a look at it now. If you were trying to figure out just looking through the portal at some of these things, you'll be able to find your customer ID, but you won't be able to find the cache node ID, the customer key, or the registration key. So at least not through the portal. So it's creating this for a reason for you, and then. For the updates, this is where we can start making sure that we're staggering the updates. So if we are deploying multiple instances in a larger org that are kind of running in parallel to each other, we can do things like saying, okay, well, for some devices, let's go through and say we'll update them on the first week of the month for the next.
Are these the updates that get into my cache or the updates of the cache server itself?
These are the updates to the cache server itself. So updates for the cache node. So basically, how do they? So rather than working inside the confines of just like Windows Update for Business or whatever it is you're using, giving you a bit more flexibility on a per server basis through here. So that way, it just sort of means that you're not going to have all of your cache servers. Or I guess if you sort of think about the worst case scenario here, if these were all updated on Patch Tuesday, and you were pushing trying to get all your clients updated on Patch Tuesday when all of these were restarting and unavailable for a short amount of time, they're basically trying to avoid that kind of scenario with that, which kind of makes sense there. As opposed to it's not some complex orchestrator that's going to determine when one's back online and the next one can shut down and restart, etc. It's just pretty simple, but I guess it serves the purpose as to what it needs to do in there. So other things then is just over on the documentation side. Let's just sort of go through. So it sort of goes through what some of the requirements are for you. So here you can see it's telling you minimum version of Windows 11 server, or even here it's saying server 22 must have OS build whatever or later. So it's not strictly saying 2025 GA.
Yes.
It is? Okay.
I thought
So a lot of people got it last
Yeah, I think it auto updated, didn't it?
Yeah.
No,
It's-
So Mark, we're gonna skip the license discussion altogether?
Sorry?
What's the use?
We're gonna skip the license discussion altogether?
Yes. Because things haven't really changed. You need to have Win 10 enterprise licensing. So I know why you're raising that, Jose, because not all of your clients necessarily have Windows 10 enterprise or Windows 11 enterprise.
That's a license requirement, it's not a tool requirement because it works on Pro.
Oh yeah, and that's the usual thing with Pro is that like anytime I shouldn't say this, I've got to be careful now, but the thing there is that you may be licensed to enterprise, but your organization hasn't actually rolled it out to you. So that's why they don't block Pro, or that's just the general logic in some cases when people go, I haven't got enterprise, Pro is still getting feature X or feature Y. That's generally the logic that's being used in a lot of those cases.
Maybe the activation process is a hiccup.
So in this case, it's something where they know it's going to be a mix and match in a lot of orgs. So so basically it's like a lot of Microsoft licensing where it's the onus is on you to meet the license requirements as opposed to Microsoft being heavy-handed in trying to enforce every single possible license. So in this case it's so I guess one of the things that's positive, but it had to be because of the naming. So if this was called Connected Cache for Enterprise and Education, but your Windows Education or M365 academic SKUs weren't included, I think that would be a little bit problematic. And I'm not comparing it to the way AutoPatch was in the past, Steve. It's more than AutoPatch.
AutoPatch is now supported on the education SKUs.
Yeah.
And this is premium.
So some of the things in here is so basically the machine that you're running on, if you're deploying it as a VM, it needs to support nested virtualization. Now, if you're just doing it if you're just sort of adding it to a bare metal install, then you don't need to worry about the nested virtualization side, because you're going to get that naturally as part of your CPU's virtualization capabilities anyway. So if you start building out the grid of the different ways you could actually deploy this in terms of, running it in a VM versus bare metal, which Linux distros are supported, which Windows versions are supported, you could build up quite a big matrix. But the reality is it's there'd really only be a handful of variations that you'd really need to test if you wanted to try them all out, at least to some point. So it's all pretty pretty straightforward in terms of the the performance. I'll sort of just give you a quick look at this, but the machine that I'm demonstrating on here, it's a workstation. It doesn't have it definitely doesn't have best in class 10 gig adapters that are going to do 100% offload. So we'll see that there is a performance hit trying to sort of target too many things through the network adapters at the same time. But overall, the requirements for it is in terms of CPU cores. So I've just sort of maxed this one out. So not maxed it out. I've basically set it to meet the requirement here for large enterprise. So I've basically given it 16 cores, 32 gig, 500 gig, 300 gig storage, and basically given it a dedicated 10 gig adapter. So just to sort of show you this in action, if we switch over to the client side, just a few things over here, and just to sort of show you that I really haven't had this up and running for very long, is that basically here's the installer. So basically, running, I set this up, you saw, just before 2 p.m. Now here it's saying 11 p.m. and that's saying 7. So what's that? 4. Yeah. So basically, 4 hours ago. Everything is lining up in here. So the installation process, as long as you've gone through, there's a few things you need to do in terms of providing it with the. There's basically you need to do some work to add some credentials in here. Let me just see. Do I have those in here? Okay, yep. So here, so user, environment, Doink administrator, and then running basically for a PowerShell credential there, basically, my local account. And that's something that is sort of, it's partially documented over here somewhere, but not, they don't give you as much detail as you probably would like to get it up and running immediately. Now, let me just jump in to here, deploy connected cache to Windows. So if we sort of jump in here, it's basically just sort of saying, create a user environment variable. So it's telling you you need to create it, but it's not really, it would be really nice if it just gave you that little bit of extra information about, using env, colon, etc. So nothing too major that's missing from here, but just there's a few things they're assuming that you know how to do, or that you that you've got the ability to figure it out pretty quickly. So once you've sort of done that, so you basically have to set the basically do the identity stuff first. You have to, or before you do that, you need to install WSL2, and by default it's going to be the latest version that gets installed by default. So not too much of a challenge there. Let me go back over to the VM. So just to sort of show you here that this was something that was pretty. Once I sort of had the VM configured. And had to do some troubleshooting because this wouldn't install because it was, or the script wouldn't run because it was detecting that there was a restart was needed, and basically I had to install a PowerShell module to figure out what was claiming a restart was needed, and it was just some files that were being renamed. So that probably added another couple of minutes versus the 15 to 20 minutes total. Now, one of the things that I noticed here, and I'm not saying you'll get the same experience, but when it's going through and doing the install here, one of the things that it's doing as part of this, I'm just seeing if it's actually telling you anywhere in here that we can see it. Okay, no, it doesn't look as if we can see it directly through here, but it is downloading basically like the container that this is going to be running in. And what I noticed was that the download was pretty slow. I was expecting I thought this would be something that would be, coming down at close to whatever your internet connection speed was, but no, it was not. It was only coming down at 40 to 50 megabits per second. So I don't know if that's just because it's a preview service. So maybe the content just hasn't been widely pushed out to CDNs, etc. Now, I guess the thing that would be nice, but I'm assuming it's probably not doing it at the moment, is it'd be nice if the install for this actually used DO, so that if you're doing multiple deployments, it could actually just keep pulling down the additional instances from what you've already got cached. But I don't think that's what's happening here. Now, just to show you a few things here. So here's the MCC WSL01 folder that it created by default for this installation. You can see here the X4. So basically, this is the virtual drive that is storing this content. So you can sort of see here that I've got 30 gig of content sitting in that at the moment. And in this case, most of that is Office updates as well as a few Windows updates. I just, basically powered on a few VMs, had basically updated the Intune policy to point to a different IP address for the DO server, gave it a few minutes, and then started downloading, and everything just worked really quickly. So basically, I'm not going to say it was a perfect experience for me, but I think most of the issue for me was that because it was a VM that I'd sort of built and hadn't actually just sort of let it sit and do its thing for a while, that was more of the challenge that I had with it. Nothing really to do with the installation or anything along those lines. So just over on another screen, I'm just going through and firing up a few, basically just sort of triggering a few downloads that should start hitting it pretty quickly, just so you can sort of see that we can sort of start, hitting it and getting basically getting some responses in here pretty quickly. So so we can already see that that's happening over there. Now, one of the things that I'm sort of noticing here is that even though I'm occasionally getting over a gig throughput, this is a 10 gig adapter, but it's not, I'm not running it on a server OS. I haven't even checked to see what I've got configured in terms of anything around lead-bat. So my expectation here is that I could be, okay, so I'm getting over a gig, which is a good thing. That's proving that it's not a 1 gig adapter, but I would really like it to be sort of somewhere up a little bit, a little bit higher here. At least for the demonstration purposes. But then when it's all of these VMs running on one machine, even though it's got two 10 gig adapters on that VM, you can sort of see here that it's barely getting above a 1 gig connection most of the time there. So there's obviously some kind of resource constraint going on around SRV IO or some other hardware feature that we really should be offloading from the CPU. Because even over on the host that this is running on, if we just take a look at CPU performance, let me just change it. Oops, where did that go? I've lost my task manager. Okay, so even here you can see that it's not really hitting the CPU hard on very hard at all on the host. And I can so it's just sort of something here where I think it's just my configuration here. So now that hopefully over the next month and a bit as things slow down, there'll be a couple of periods where it slows down a bit. I'll try some different bare metal options to see what I can do to see I don't know if I'd be able to saturate a 10 gig connection, but I'm sure across all the physical and virtual machines I've got floating around, I could try to saturate it a bit more than just one machine putting load on itself. So in this case it's pretty quick. Now, but even here, like the thing is, even if I only had the, one of these machines, so let's say the physical machine, which I think may have already, actually, I don't think the physical machine is, oh yeah, there it is. So if I sort of run this one in isolation, I can get, over a gig from that one. But again, like again, there's stuff going on at the network level because I've got, Hyper-V enabled. So I think there's a few things kind of standing in the way. I'm doing things to meet my needs that are actually impacting the throughput that I'm actually going to get in here, especially when I'm loading up all these different VMs, etc. So I'll play around with a bit more of that stuff just to sort of see, what is it that's actually causing, performance issues in those cases. But it's something where I guess and to even sort of force more traffic onto it, I deliberately disabled peer DO as well on all of the machines that are connecting through, because I didn't want them trying to offload from the connected cache server. But if I sort of went through and turned on turned on peer delivery as well, each VM would probably be pulling things down at 2 to 3 times the speed at least of what we're there, because it's pulling it, all that other content from each other. So so overall, pretty easy to go through, get it deployed. It will just go through, update itself in the background. We saw that there's a schedule for how frequently things need to be updated. But I guess some of the impact here, especially if you're installing it onto Windows machines, is you'll need to sort of take a little bit of a closer look at WSL if it's not something you've really worked with before or you've deployed previously. Now, you don't need any exposure to WSL to get this working, but you probably want some exposure to WSL to start seeing, is there anything I should be doing further to secure WSL to make sure that certain traffic in and out, because if we take a look at what's happening, if we just sort of switch back over to that VM and we jump in here, notice we've got the 2 different network adapters inside the VM. So that's our external adapter, but this one here is basically the WSL. It's a NAT address that's being issued there. So we may want to sort of, in a lot of orgs, you probably want to take a look at, maybe making sure that, that things are configured here the way that meet your requirements versus what the DO team has done to get the thing working. Even though I'm sure they're not, they haven't deliberately opened up anything they shouldn't have, it doesn't mean that necessarily meets your requirements.
Just quickly, Mark, if I could.
Yeah.
When you're if you go back to the VM, are you able to list the WSL instances that it's created? Because I noticed you said it was an XT4 virtual hard disk that it made, but if PowerShell, if you did WSL-L, I assume then it spun up its own box for this service. Yes. And what is it running? Is that just like a Ubuntu VM?
Yeah,
when
he said it downloads, it's downloading on Ubuntu VM.
That speed is interesting because WSL is notoriously, WSL2 was notoriously slow compared to 1 when transferring off the native file system it used. But it looks like they've gotten around that by just forcing a different.
It'll be reading direct a virtual hard disk straight to network.
Yeah.
Now so the other thing as well in here, where I'm trying to make sure that disk isn't part of the equation. So if you take a look in here, there's no disk activity, or there's hardly any disk activity while this is taking place, because generally speaking. So just to sort of show you the script that I'm running for that, I'll just open it up and bring it up for you. Basically, it's just running the ODT, pulling down the 6 different channels. So that's generally going to be maybe 15 to 20 gig in size. So it's all going to fit in memory over on that 32 gig system as cache. So that's one of the reasons why I sort of over provisioned the memory, because I didn't want disk bottleneck to be one of the issues that I had to troubleshoot in here. Even though, it's, NVMe drive, all that kind of thing, just trying to keep everything in memory where possible. And in this case, you can sort of just see based on the disk activity that there's something here, there's some stuff going on, but really not very much at all. If we sort of compare it to how much traffic is actually being generated over here. Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, so all up, it's like realistically, probably like even if you haven't worked with this before, you know, the things that are like if you've already got like a Windows Server VM ready to go, or if you like, you know, you could use that. So really the thing that is probably going to be the most time consuming here is if you haven't got an easy way to just sort of spin up a pre-configured, updated, you know, Server 22 VM, but even just grabbing an ISO and doing a clean install, even that's not going to take very long at all. Just sort of, probably just the thing that gets time consuming there is if you don't act fast and it starts hitting Windows Update before you realize it, when you try to restart it, etc., that stuff's going to slow it down a little bit. So just sort of make sure you're pausing the updates before you start the installation process. But otherwise, like I'd say this is something that I don't think, or maybe like the first attempt might take a bit more than an hour, but if once you've run through the process, I think you could probably streamline it to be well under 60 minutes to get it deployed and reporting. And I guess part of that is going to be dependent on the speed of the hardware you're getting the VM on, but it was pretty easy experience. And most of the issues that I was hitting were self-inflicted, as opposed to anything around the script or the setup or WSL, anything along those lines. So I guess give it a shot, try it out. Nice and easy to get up and running. So any other questions on that?
Did you have to do anything on the clients? Or you...
Okay, yeah. So for the clients, all I had to do was, because those clients already had a delivery optimization policy targeting them in Intune, I just changed the IP address of the host they were targeting, and that was it. Yeah.
You can do that by two ways. Either you hard code on Intune, and you can have a list, and it will round robin until you find one active.
Yeah.
Or you can do via customized scope 234 on DHCP. That you say point to this server, so you can do that on network level, and it's transparent to the clients.
There's a fun third way too, that if your network allows MDNS, it'll just discover the server with no config, but that's not allowed on a lot of networks. So
so all up, pretty easy process. For some reason, I was just expecting it to be more challenging than it was, but that was based on some of the experiences I had with the earlier previews that they had. So this time, everything just seems to work smoothly. The time for it to actually connect and show that it's live and working was infinitely faster than what I was seeing with the old VM host approach that we used to have to take. So basically a VM inside of a VM. So of course we're sort of getting performance penalties all the way through in that case.
I think that's kind of why that thing dragged for 5 years, right? Because better technology came through and they changed it, isn't it?
Yeah, because even even if you sort of go back, originally you had to start doing things like deploying IoT hubs, then you didn't have to deploy the IoT hub anymore, because they were using the Azure IoT Edge services. So I think just as as different capabilities became available, and I think even just WSL improving to where they could use containers instead of using VMs, there's just all these different things that happened that. I'm sure they had some tough decisions where they said, look, we could start getting ready to ship it now, or we could do it on something that we know is going to have a better experience and maybe a longer support life cycle.
I think the thing that changed is like the hosting technology. The code itself probably didn't change, or the technology didn't change much.
Yeah, because I get it's hard. It basically caches files in 1 meg chunks, or at least that's the way the old version of it worked. It was basically how big is a file? We'll count how many files are in the, because you could sort of track, you could take a look through, and if you ever look at it on the config manager side, you can kind of really get a good idea of what's going on there and go, okay, well, that means that this thing that was installed is approximately this big based on the number of 1 megabyte files that are in this particular folder that maps to the name of that thing we just installed. Okay, so let's jump on into the next topic. So Windows 11 24H2. Now, I guess just rather than going through like different features and capabilities, etc. here, I guess the thing that I really wanted to sort of, just sort of have a conversation about was, how people are approaching, their rollout plans based on who it is you actually support. So, some of you might be MSPs, some of you might be, internal IT, some of you might be leveraging auto patch for this. So I guess I just wanted to get a bit of an idea of, even if this is like more of your personal opinion rather than, your company endorsement of a particular approach, of like how you're probably like not just 24H2, but I guess just, feature updates in general. How are you approaching them in terms of, are you doing aggressive rollouts? Are you just going, we'll do it when it's needed? So just if anyone wants to chime in.
So we're rolling out Windows 11 and doing updates through that. So still with config manager, half our devices are on autopilot in tune purely. So we're trying to test Windows Update Business to do it. So yeah, they're the two main.
So you're rolling out Windows 11 24H2 already, or you previously?
23H2 has been signed off. We've tested 24H2 and inconsistent with some weird issues. Yeah, we've had issues trying to get it just like to do it itself, even with an Intune policy trying to push it. Some random third party like voice meter, it won't like the driver, even though you just uninstall the driver, reinstall it after the fact, it's fine. So we're waiting until it's able to do it by itself. Basically. So kind of released to say 24H2 has got some blockers still, so it's not actually being picked up on some devices. Yeah. Intel sound drivers and camera drivers.
That's always the case with it.
Yeah. And this is, this has basically been, like a recurring story going back. We're at the point now where we can say decades, where it used to be a bit more predictable, the things that you could expect to see an article about the incompatibility, such as, vendor X's sound card incompatible with new version of Windows, or vendor X's CD-ROM drive incompatible. And it's like, wow, you're doing a great job of, in most of those cases, it was stuff that was, identified, or stuff that was pretty old, and was probably already out of support anyway in a lot of cases. But yeah, it's always going to be one of those things with Windows where there's, just the amount of random stuff that runs on top of it. It's amazing. It's amazing that it works. I
feel like the 0903 cadence was quite regular, and so third-party vendors were ready to go and knew it was kind of coming. Whereas H1, H2, the release date has always slipped. So I feel like it's
never slipped.
It's not slipped, but not come out, not generally available for everyone. And then it's kind of.
Well, that's always been by design. Okay. When moving to that, it's the same as what you're doing with deployment services, where we're artificially doing the stick deployment. Okay. We're going to go for the safe devices, then we're going to go, all right, let's unblock that. Now they're safe, and we're going to expand it out. Where the difference between 21, 22, 23, and then 24 is. So those three previous ones for Windows 11 have been enablement pack updates, the feature update, whereas anything moving to 24 is an OS swap. That's why you're seeing driver issues and everything like that cropping up, because it's actually a full OS swap, not just an enablement pack. So an enablement pack is basically, I've got all my feature updates. We just send down a 5 meg file that goes, you're now the new version. Whereas this one is a full OS swap where we lift all your files up and change the operating system out underneath it.
Yeah, there isn't anything in it, I think, that we're hanging out for. So I think until devices are very comfortably getting it by themselves and testing, we won't activate.
And that's not unexpected, right? That is by design. We want you to pick it up on your own time. We just definitely want you to pick it up.
I think I updated 3 devices. 2 are fine.
Yep.
One's my main driver, daily driver. Other one just kept not responding. Weird stuff going on. It's probably something in our security stack or something.
Yes,
More
than likely.
but enough for me to hold off again for a bit longer.
Yeah. What I will say is that we have fixed a whole heap of stuff for kiosk. Yes, that's something I'm very passionate about, believe it or not. With 24H2, we fixed up a whole heap of stuff in those. But there are some major fixes in 24, as well as things that will be announced next week that I'm not going to talk about this week because then I will get myself into trouble.
And the session is being recorded, and I refuse to edit it.
Exactly.
Sorry, it's called 24H2.
Yes.
I thought sudo for Windows was going to be a bit better, or it worked differently than I expected. Because we have a lot of devs, and I was really hoping that they have like a separate admin account that's like local admin.
That's P1.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I was hoping you could change your UAC behavior. So if your local account is a local admin, you could still ask it to like ask for a password. Even though
Admin list will do something like that as well with the virtual account thing.
Unless you speak of.
Is it rebranded now? No,
It's not public.
it's not.
It is. Is it?
Shit, yeah.
It is. Have we spoken about it? Publicly?
Edit the recording.
It's the internet now. There's
Those are
like
not
lots
fun.
about it.
Now you have.
which then I imagine that by the name sounds like something that would more or less be
No.
a Linux approach to like admin.
Let's make sure it's actually public first before I talk about it.
It will be a January discussion just to be safe. How's that?
Yeah.
It's canary
Yeah.
build, so.
I'm not going to go into it because I will get myself into trouble.
Something is coming might be great.
Yeah, so there are some blogs articles about it.
Yeah, I've just
They probably don't have the full information because we haven't disclosed all of the information and reverse engineering. You're not going to see it all.
But with sudo for Windows, was that intended to eventually be like an enterprise used feature? Because at the moment it feels very much home user.
My assumption right now, and I'm not close enough on that one.
17.
I haven't dug into it, so I would assume that it was built for consumer. There's
Because I think it has been getting mentioned over on the Windows Inside, or not the Windows Insider, but the Windows blog consumer oriented updates.
Yeah.
But one of the things with this one was that it seemed like there were really only like a handful of things that I saw. I didn't dig too deeply, but it seemed like there were really only a handful of things that were sort of more business focused as opposed to just general enhancements that would benefit consumer and business.
There's a couple of big security updates for 24. So like PDE is one of those.
Yeah, and you've got your LSA protection enabled by default kind of thing.
We've added a whole heap of serious security stuff to 24. But there is going to be some more announcements next week around it. So I'm not going anywhere near any of that.
The lamps improvement was cool.
Yes.
Steve, is there anything that you can tell us?
Everything you say.
I don't know what's
Will be
fully on
using
the
it
script
for
for next week, and this is the script for my boss's boss. So I'm not going anywhere near anything that I don't know what's supposed to be there or not.
And you don't ever want to be in a situation where you have a blog post scheduled to get published at a certain time period when the NDA is lifted, but there's things that you know that you're not supposed to know, And one of the things that you weren't aware of was that something had a last minute name change before the announcement was actually made. And you accidentally expose yourself as knowing something that you weren't supposed to know about the previous name. You never want to be in that situation and quickly have to clean up your blogs, your Twitter account, your LinkedIn account to make sure that unless somebody's got screenshots, there's no evidence that thing ever happened.
Yep.
And you do not. I've been in that situation once, and I do not want to be in that again.
Nope. Mark understands why I'm going to be very on any of this.
So, it's a one-word answer, Steve. Mortgage.
Yeah, exactly.
Having income is a good thing.
Yep. Employment.
Yep.
But yeah, there is going to be some good stuff for Windows next week, especially around the commercial space. So it's a watch this space scenario.
Via what, like update channel, just a blog post, YouTube?
Yes. Cool. There's, I think,
Look for the
18.
booklet on Ignite and that tells.
Oh, true.
I
Yeah.
think there's
Next week.
18
Yeah.
blogs going out next week.
Yeah. Lines up with Ignite.
And there'll be the
I
book of,
totally. Yeah. I forgot Ignite.
yeah. There's
But
like
yeah,
also the book of announcements that's kind of summarizes everything as well.
Actually, Mark's going to be there so he can text us.
Whole life. Yeah, I'll schedule everything in advance, but I'll just make it all up and see if any of it is actually accurate.
If you hit me, you're right. Yeah.
And see how long until I get tapped on the shoulder
I have
and
high
asked to leave.
expectations that you're actually pretty close with most of them.
Yeah. Oh no, it doesn't. Basically, the rise of social media, or even before social media, just like different tech communities and blogs and things like that, completely changed how you approached saying things in public. And even if you said the right thing in public, it's amazing the mental gymnastics people will go through to turn something you've said into the thing they wanted you to say.
Yep.
And when you're sort of on a forum under a name where nobody knows who you are and somebody is claiming something, and you can go, well, that's bullshit. Pardon me, but I was there too, and that was not what was said.
Yep.
And I may have been the person who was deliberately not saying the thing that you said. Or I asked a question, and based on the look on their face, I think this is what the answer was going to be.
The answer is
Like-
wrong.
Okay.
Anyone
So
going to Ignite in the community from the room or anyone?
so I'll be there. That was a bit of a.
I don't think anybody else is. Paresh.
Yeah,
You?
it's
They have
a
an extra
small.
ticket, right?
It's a small
No.
venue.
No budget, man.
Yeah.
It's not
As
a small
always.
venue. Chicago can hold 20,000.
And they're not aiming for anywhere near that number of attendees.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I-
And it's one of those things where, like, if you've ever been to the ever expanding Orlando convention centers, like that is just crazy in terms of how big that is. But then they're still using things like the Hyatt, etc., as overflow. It's like, we need more ballrooms. So then you start leveraging all the hotels that have got their own, basically Australian-sized convention centers inside of the hotel.
Yes.
And then you've got your US supersized convention centers that basically they're the satellites around those.
Orlando was brilliant.
Yeah. And you got a lot of exercise.
Yes, you did.
And you had to build your agenda based on your proximity to sessions as opposed to the sessions you wanted to be in.
No, it was easy. You just stay on the expo floor and just talk to people and ask them what they thought of the session and get the information from them.
It's like, wow, you went to 300 sessions. Okay, so this is just that summary of some of the things that in terms of the top line things that kind of jumped out in terms of new features. But I guess instead of talking about them, let's wait until early next year. So basically we'll have time to digest the Ignite announcements. Now, just for the final piece before we start wrapping up. So we'll sort of, today we've got to try to finish up around 7. I know Steve has to kick you all out of the building today. So I'm putting the blame on Steve instead of me taking responsibility for it. Yeah. So then just the final thing then, and this is just a general conversation, and this might be a very quick conversation, and you'll be able to tell based on the single slide that I have in place that I really gave this a lot of thought. Now, this is one of those situations where someone's obit gets leaked before they actually die. So, you know, you sort of see those things all the time with celebrities where, you know, it accidentally leaks that somebody has died. And I think there are some celebrities who've died repeatedly. But I guess we're now basically under a year away from this. And even though there's still, like, I still sort of see some of that online chatter from the people who are claiming that the machine that they bought 6 years ago is just as good as any machine that you can buy today. Actually, it's probably longer than 6 years ago now. But this is just one of those things where I guess for me, the problem that I have with, you know, people going, oh, you know, Microsoft's enforcing, you know, these new hardware requirements. And it's like, yes, just like they have done repeatedly. But maybe you were too young to realize that, first of all, there was the, you couldn't upgrade to something unless you had a 32-bit CPU, or you couldn't move to the next version if you didn't have NX capabilities, or you can't move to the next version unless you've got second layer address translation in your CPU, things along those lines. So so this is something that happens on a regular basis in terms of the new hardware requirements, and it's generally not new hardware requirements. It's established hardware capabilities that have been in market for several years already that perhaps you don't have yet. So they never sort of say, it's never a situation where it's like, it's for, we're going to say that at this point in time, you have to have something that hasn't been released yet. That's not what this is. It's basically, killing off, elements of that long tail of things that have been out there for a long time. So I guess for me with this, like anyone who is saying, oh, but what will I do with my old laptop that won't run Windows 11 or whatever? It's like, put Linux on it, put MCC on it.
Windows 365.
So there's so there's always options as to what you can do. But just sort of checking though, I want to check in to see like if anyone is hitting any kind of still got any kind of hard blockers where they know that they're going to be sweating until the last minute to see if they can get people off Win 10 before end of support.
I know at least one person in the room has that problem.
No.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think we'll end up paying for extended support.
Yeah.
You got 20,000 devices. 20,000.
Or Windows 10. Well, you said you just started.
The Windows 11 project's very active. We're rolling out now, but it's not going to be done within a year.
Grab me after the recording stops.
What are you going to?
I need to talk to you if I understand.
Okay. So I guess actually I should have actually put the official date in here, but I should have had October 14, 2025.
Well, that's when the last update's released.
Yeah, that's then it becomes a time bomb.
A month after that.
Yeah.
Yes, patch Tuesday following, isn't it? Yes.
But you don't have any more updates.
Yeah. Wait, so you never have to restart again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Though the worst one was
I had it.
Like what was it? Like the patch Tuesday
for an old version of Windows 10.
But there was that one Windows XP update they did after end of support, and my heart sank when that was announced, because it's like, oh no, you're just feeding the trolls. They're going to expect more of it. Even though, yes, it was something that was done with good intentions, and I think also with XP, because it had been pushed back so many times, that it was, people just weren't really believing that it was going to happen. So then for 7, people kind of realized that it was going to happen. And for 10, I don't, I really, especially now that you've got, extended support offerings are available. I'd love to see what, if anything, could actually extend that end of support date.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No, I think the outline of support's been very documented, and the price is there now, so people know.
Big bag of cash is how you get extended. So
Yeah, exactly that.
But hasn't that always been the case?
yes.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those things where it's, it's almost like all the, articles and posts, etc. It's the situation of the gold. People say, by the time a goldfish swims around its bowl, it forgets what it saw on the first lap. Like every time there's a new OS, etc. It's I don't want to say it's completely predictable, but it's pretty predictable in terms of what the outrage is going to be, or what a variation of the outrage will be.
Yes.
Like if you want to be outraged, I'll take it seriously when it's a new type of outrage I haven't experienced before. Like I have to be entertained. If you're telling me a complaint that I've heard before, I get bored and I tune out and I don't take it seriously.
Agree.
It's like, sorry, did I yawn halfway through you yelling at me? Oh, okay.
Oh, you're still talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was in my happy place.
It was counting the extra cash you're giving us.
So
Just to be clear, we don't want you paying us for extended support.
No, I don't want.
Full stop, capital letter. We do not want you to be doing that. We'll take the money.
Yeah.
Don't get us wrong, but we don't want it.
Yeah, that's money that you should be spending on fixing whatever the issue is that you have.
Buying hardware, maybe.
Yeah.
It's funny because with a lot of enterprise, big enterprise, I doubt hardware compatibility is the problem.
No problem, not the problem.
Yeah.
Be surprised.
We've got a customer at a similar size, and it's not hardware.
Yeah,
It's hardware.
it's not hardware. Yeah, it's just people.
Oh, not just that. Let's just. I can tell you right now that there's.
You have to put everything in priorities, like people, applications.
I've got
Hardware stack is the hardware's quite low down.
Yeah, from
in
what?
terms of
Yeah,
blockers.
I've got a very large customer that a quarter of their hardware is not compatible for Windows 11.
Yeah, because it's old.
but that still sounds like that's a people problem, right? That started with a people problem.
Yeah.
Because this is
COVID is not causing us that many issues yet.
Sort of.
Look, and this ties into one of the issues that we see where somebody will deliberately stay back on that, they'll sort of keep an eye out for old version new stock. So they're buying something with a full warranty, even though it's a couple of generations behind the current versions. And this is the kind of situation where they get caught out with that, where it's like, yes, you saved money on that purchase, but your refresh you're not going to get that same, refresh, extended period until a refresh cycle that you may have had if you spent a couple of $100 more on each of those machines.
But they won't give you 3 years warranty on a 3 generations back, so you're still not gonna be able to use those 6 years.
Yeah.
I think the problem we're seeing is COVID was X years ago, and a lot of devices were bought then.
Yes.
So now a lot are being refreshed.
Yes, we know.
And what we're seeing is we're having a conversation with Dell, our main provider, to decide what we're going to get and what we're going to go forward with, and how
Copilot plus devices.
everything. Yep. And that's delaying the Windows 11, because when we get those devices, we're going to roll them out with Windows 11.
Of course you are.
So it's just it's
And they're cloud native. And
it's
shy.
it's not.
Yeah, chicken and the egg as well.
Like a good chunk isn't compatible, but they don't even want to start the rest of that until everything is hardware compatible.
Which is the wrong way to look at it.
Replace
what you
that.
can, use what you have, build what you can, and over the time then replace by attrition. Because if you sit there and go and do if you go and buy 5,000 devices today, and your organization's 5,000 seats, in 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to do another 5,000 devices. If you sit there and stagger that over the next 12 months, then you're going to stagger the requirement of purchasing over the next 12 months and ideally 2 financial years.
Also, though, it's funny because you're like, the people would also oppose having like a mix. They're like, oh, but we can't have half people in Windows 11. We haven't started the project to upgrade the other half from 10 to 11.
Just point them to the blog. We put the blog out 4 months ago. Myths and misconceptions about going to Windows 11.
Oh,
We explained it in detail as to
we
how.
translated that in detail. But I think we're okay now, actually. We only have about 500 devices and we're already almost halfway. So,
And again, if you can do that, get people on Windows 365 11 for the months that you have and start staggering by doing that. Use Windows 11 as a jump box for the ones and just pay Windows 11 or Windows 365 for those months and then.
The best way that we've seen customers make the move is either in-place upgrade, because it's just done. But if you're also wanting to do cloud native at the same time, because we've seen a lot of customers go, oh, well, we're going to do cloud native, Intune managed, Intune joined. Great. When you get new hardware. Because sitting there and resetting a computer for admin tools and admin controls doesn't add value to your business. Do it via attrition. You're never going to have a heterogeneous environment where every computer is identical. There is always going to be an application, a configuration, a setting that is different across a percentage of your devices. So don't look for perfect.
Yeah, no. The conversation is like, so what should we do? Should we do in-place upgrades or new devices? And I'm just like, yes. The answer is yeah, all of them. Just don't think of one, think of everything.
But yeah, this is a common conversation. We're further along than we're expecting, but it's still going to be tight. If you need hardware, plan for it early, because there's going to be a lot of organizations doing it in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter next calendar year, and you will not be able to get hardware.
think about that.
We heard that in April, was it?
Bit over again.
Yeah, say by April, everything is gonna feel up that they won't be able to apply anymore.
That's true. Yeah. CPO is going to be like 12 weeks. Yeah.
Actually, and if you think about Australia, with end of financial year being end of June, yeah, it's going to be a big Q4 play. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need hardware, order it now.
Buy Dell stock in May, Yeah. That's going to go hard.
I'm happy to go around the table and take orders if you like.
Get Aylan.
I can probably do a round table right away. Just tell me the quantity and the model. And
Do we get mates rates?
yeah.
I think
And there would be
Only 5% premium on them.
there would be a special coupon code for this particular group.
Rex 365.
You take Pay ID?
We do accept bitcoins and everything as well.
Okay, so I guess then just like any final, I guess, serious pieces around the Windows 10 side, as opposed to us not ridiculing it, but being less than friendly towards some of the situations that people may have deliberately chosen to place themselves in.
Said 20,000, right? 11 months is times 20 days. That's 220. 20,000 divided by 220. You need to be doing 90 devices a day if you start today.
You can do it.
Start a day, you need to do 90 a day to reach your 20,000. That's just for you to think about.
But in-place upgrade is actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, especially not going to, if you're doing in place not to 24, like.
Well, no, so it's the same whether it's 23 or 24.
Same time?
Because it's still OS swap.
Oh, true.
So you may as well just go straight to 24. It's still just an OS swap. But one, half a dozen the other, doesn't really matter. Just get to a supported version of Windows 11.
Yeah.
When you're doing things, question, when you do things via task sequence and SCCM, will take safeguards in place and all this kind of stuff, or it does not?
It does not. Well, it depends. If you go and run setup.exe,
Yeah, if you do the
Or
same thing as
most
people do.
if you do, the setup.exe process and all of that, yes, it will. If you slam the Vim over the top of it and force the upgrade, no. Don't do that though. Do not slam the Vim over the top because that causes more problems than you think. But yeah, setup. There are solutions out there that will tell you why your feature updates are blocked, and that will give you the answers to your safeguard holds. So safeguard hold, for those who aren't in the know, this is where we've identified that there's a bug with going from version 1 to version 2, where the application that is installed either needs to be updated by the vendor or we need to do some sort of shim to handle that.
Is that like this one create something on SCCM that you can run against all your device to be able to tell that or get the safeguard holds?
Yeah.
But like Adam can tools, can you run something on SCCM that will get all that's cool.
Yeah, Adam created a PowerShell module.
Yeah.
I was about to say, yeah.
There's a deep.
I knew, but I thought his was only to check, not that you could run against every single device. There was even a Windows 10 and would tell you.
Yeah, that's what you do is you literally just deploy this PowerShell script.
Yeah, do a remediation.
So you're doing that to run that PowerShell on every single device.
Otherwise, you can just run the appraiser database separately and you'll see it. But also, Config Manager, because it's linked into WSUS, WSUS will run the appraiser database to see what apps and updates are required for your device. And as part of that, it checks to see if there's any safeguard holds that will cause that update not to be offered to your device. And then it centralizes it into a report in dashboard in Config Manager, which you can then go and pull out of the database and do some really cool things with. Off. I've had a bit of fun with it.
There's a really big one on USB scan drivers at the moment that's blocking a good chunk of, well, not a good chunk, most of ours are sorted, but some of our customers.
But is there any blockers that people are seeing for Win 10 to 11 other than political?
Yeah.
That's when you push an in-place upgrade by mistake to collection all devices.
We did joke that.
Like, what group should I deploy? Oh.
Whatever you do, if they turn around and say, oh, you've got to roll it back, do not roll it back.
That would be so funny.
I've seen it done in a production environment. Don't do it. Just do not do it.
Someone had a broken state of Config Manager or something, so somehow it was going to, it was just on like retail consumer updates. And so he got a pop-up saying Windows 11, he clicked it, installed, it worked. And people were like, cool, we haven't tested it on that business unit, so we know you're good.
Yeah.
So completely fine.
I'm fine with that.
Fine.
But yeah, don't roll back feature updates because you lose apps and configurations and not good.
The Windows Update for Business start setting rollback days.
Zero. Have it as low as possible. That's what I would suggest.
You need the disk space.
I think the packages are way more safer than the full upgrades. Like if you're doing 2022, H2 to 23, H2 rollback, will be way safer than like a
That's
full.
why we are predominantly doing enablement packs over OS swaps. Because we anticipate we'll be doing enablement pack for the next update.
Okay, so I'll stop the recording just in case there's anything for the last few minutes that anyone wants to cover before we wrap up. So I'll just stop the recording now.